I think innovation is key. I think innovating or finding a way to disrupt the market, I know it's a modern term, disrupt the market, but change the paradigm on how people are doing things, how people are experiencing things, how are you doing your research, look for different ways. I think that's key to success, is finding a different way to do it. Don't follow the same old path because everybody's doing that.
Right.
Find a different path.
Welcome to Learning from Leaders, a podcast from Southwestern Medical Foundation where we dive into a world of wisdom, mentorship, and innovation, exploring the insights and life lessons of seasoned community and business leaders. I'm Michael McMahon, President and CEO of Southwestern Medical Foundation. I invite you to subscribe now and join us on this empowering journey of growth and leadership. Now, let's learn from the best and drive meaningful change together.
Welcome back to Learning from Leaders. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Russell Hayward, an entrepreneur whose journey spans multiple industries and multiple continents, from creating a unique coffee culture in Dallas to now taking on a new frontier in cancer treatment, innovations at Etira. Russell, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Zoe. Fun to be here.
Good. Well, to get us started, we'd love to just learn a little bit about your journey. We'll spend plenty of time talking about your companies, but would just love to hear your path towards entrepreneurship.
Wow. Well, essentially, a good friend of mine, David Haig, who took a different path to me and ended up as a indentured professor up at Harvard, he'll tell you it started in fourth grade when I was walking around the school, selling stickers of all things, just because they were fun. But also that there was this kind of inbuilt desire that I didn't realize at that time to really try and control my destiny. And also earn money, but be independent. But essentially, nothing really happened. I kind of took a pretty normal path after that, except, I worked after school jobs like all of us did, and then tried to do something different with that. It really wasn't until I think I was about 23 or 24 when I was in the advertising industry in those days, and the agency I was working for merged with another one. And I ended up with a nice check and a handshake. And it was, I think it was November 83 or 84. And, in Australia, you're walking into summer vacation and Christmas, and it's this whole block where nothing actually happens. And so I was in a position where I'm not going to be able to work till like March.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And so fortunately, a couple of my old clients called me and said, "Hey, Russell, can you just help us out and do a couple of small things?" And I said, "Sure, okay." And weirdly, a week later, I'm putting a nameplate up on a door of a art studio with the name Hayward Advertising on it. And that was just honestly supposed to be a short gig. And then I saw opportunity in it and built that into an agency of the next 7 years. And essentially what we did was, at that time, we're talking about 1983, okay? So it was really the day of mainframe computers. And I'd had a lot of history with the agency I'd worked with working with computer-based clients like, IBM and,
Right.
Honeywell and these people. And there was this burgeoning industry of peripherals, printers, circuit boards, PCs were just starting to happen. So, and there was no agency for these people. There's no people that understood marketing communications for this group. Also, science equipment had really starting to emerge because of computer chips, which were this big, but they allowed all this scientific equipment to become much more affordable.
Right.
So the agency specialized in science and technology clients, and we built that up into a nice business over the next 6 years, and that was my first real entrepreneurial enterprise.
Wow. And so you're from Australia.
Yes.
What brought you to the U.S. and eventually to Dallas?
Well, the finance of that is rock and roll.
Right.
And it's a true one.
Okay.
But essentially, I'd always wanted to be here. Since a little kid, my parents will tell you that. All I did was talk about coming to the United States. And as I got older, initially it was because I just loved baseball so much. And we sit there and at my baseball club, man, like I was the only kid playing baseball when I was 5 years old for some reason.
Wow.
But we sit at a baseball club and watched by film World Series. And so the Red Sox, to me, were just everything because that was their period.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be here to be part of that world. But then as I grew older, I realized I wanted to be part of the world. I wanted to play a role in the world as best I possibly could. And in the days before email and internet, et cetera, that was impossible to do from Australia. Even though I still had clients, when we did Hayward Advertising, we had clients in Sweden, clients here in Boston, Los Angeles, Chicago. So we're doing work around the world, but it was extremely difficult to do it. So I always wanted to be here. So how I got here in rock and roll, though, what had happened, after I sold Hayward Advertising, I moved to BBDO for a period of 2 or 3 years. And then I started this business just following that, or out of that, that was a music promotions business.
Interesting.
And that was built on the opportunity that existed because in those days we had the big sponsors were putting their label on artist tours, like, Pepsi sponsoring Michael Jackson, and
Right.
Coca-Cola was somebody else, probably Madonna or somebody. And some of those artists had not been pure in their, offstage activities. So some of the brands were being affected by this. So we created this company that was built on developing promotions and musical events for clients
Okay.
that were curated and designed to really sell their brand and appeal to just their target audience and build on the brand rather than just be a bolt-on.
Yeah.
So that was that business, and I through that I had worked on a lot of live music events, live-to-air music events, live-to-TV music events, and somehow, in the tragedy of Bill Graham, I don't know if you know who he was. He was a legendary San Francisco promoter from the start of rock and roll. He died in a helicopter accident with Stevie Ray
wow.
Vaughan up in Seattle, and that stopped the production of guitar. I'm sorry, this goes so long. That stopped the
interesting.
production of Guitar Player magazine's major 25th anniversary concert, and they had no one to produce it. So somehow they found about me and called me up, and I jumped on a plane, and here I am in San Francisco, 8 weeks out from the world's largest gathering of major guitar
Oh, my
players, and I
gosh.
produced that event. And once I got here and got that event out of the way, and by the way, I will say that next morning I woke up and front page of San Francisco Chronicle, it's a whole story on the show and how great it was. So
Oh, that's incredible.
yeah, I felt great about that. I went, okay, that's it, I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
going back.
And then what brought you to Dallas eventually?
Henry Miller, actually.
Okay.
I'd been working, I had my rock and roll time in LA, music industry, and then I started a branding company in LA, and that was doing brand work all around the world as we were. And Highland Park Village and West Village, before it opened, we did a lot of branding work for Henry and helped set up those
Okay.
brands a little better. So I knew him, and I was looking to move my family, young family, out of Los Angeles. I just didn't think that's where I wanted to bring them up. And looking around America for different cities to go to. And a chance meeting with Henry in Paris, of all places, he convinced me to come to Dallas. And lo and behold, I moved 3-4 months later. Yeah.
Wow. And we have a really quickly growing innovation ecosystem here. How have you found Dallas as a city to just be an entrepreneur?
Well, that's the reason I came here. And that was 2002. And, what I found out, there's a couple of things I found about Dallas. The first thing that always struck me was that Texans were so similar to Australians.
Interesting.
And so similar, more similar than any other state in America.
How so?
I think it's that frontier mentality.
Yeah.
I think it's the ability, the sense of we can do anything. We put our minds to it, we can just do it. There's no rules that apply to us. And that's certainly a Australian thing, but it's very much a Texan thing. So I felt really comfortable with that environment. I also saw, when I first came here, it was kind of staid. And I was like, looking at it, it's kind of staid, it's kind of not much moving, but then there was this undercurrent of energy and some real leaders that I was very fortunate to meet here that wanted to do things. And so I kind of seen the spark of what could happen. And, I was fortunate enough to live through Sydney when it blew up in the 80s and LA when it blew up in the 90s. And I saw the same thing happening in Dallas, and so this is starting to move. And so that kind of was why I chose it. It took a little longer to get moving than I thought it would, but it did. And of course, Dallas is blowing out of control now. And when you talk about life science industry, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's gone from nothing. I mean, when did we open Etira? 3.5 years ago. And I travel around the country, raising capital as you do, and people are like, you're from Dallas? And what? Like nothing good comes out of Dallas. If you're still in Dallas, it can't be any technology, can't be any good. That has changed.
Yeah.
And even as little as a year ago, people were saying, oh, you're from Dallas? What are you doing in Dallas? And, oh, we're at Biolab Space. Oh, yeah, what's going on with that? And so the interest level in Dallas has really started to change from there's nothing good there till there is something major happening in Dallas. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing to hear. Okay, so I'd love to get to Ascension. So you are the founder of Ascension Coffee. I know many of our listeners are huge fans, as am I. Tell us about just the beginnings of getting that company started. What kind of planted the idea? What was the beginning process like?
Well, my life is built on opportunity. And as an entrepreneur, that's, I think, what drives most entrepreneurs is seeing opportunity and then evaluating it and then realizing I can do something about this. I also love to change things up, to innovate, to do something different. And generally, I set goals for myself when I was in my early 20s that anything I wanted to do was going to be improving the human experience. That was really where my heart is. And I think that's where I'm kind of probably more talented than other things. So Ascension was really just a pain point. I couldn't get a good cup of coffee. It's as simple as that. And it's obviously not as simple as that, but it started off with, I'm so frustrated. I can't get a decent cup of coffee. The coffee shops are not good. There was one model for a coffee shop in America, which was Starbucks.
Right.
And I thought that was well past its prime. In fact, what it really, once I got the idea or the desire to do something, I then spent 18 months researching it. So it wasn't just, oh yeah, I'm going to do it and start it up. You've got to do your work and understand how to develop a business around a need, right? And what I'd seen was Starbucks that really did an incredible job in America of creating a coffee shop that was the center of the community. They were moving away from that to drive-throughs, where they could drive, I think it was 70% more volume in revenue. So, and decreasing these shops and making them either smaller or closing them altogether or pulling chairs and tables out. But I saw the community was like using this space and they wanted this space. And even how they were using Starbucks at the time was not the way Starbucks was intended. So that told me there's an opportunity here to, innovate or certainly disrupt and do something different that's really going to deliver an experience that the customer wants, that they're looking for. But it has to be high quality. And so that's what drove Ascension. That drove the concept, and which turned into, I'm sure, as I know you're aware, turned into breakfast food, real food. Breakfast and lunch, light dinner, beer, wine, mixed drinks as well. And this kind of service and this feeling that we designed all those shops to be able to, for community to happen, for people to sit and talk to each other. That was specific in our design, rather than come and get a cup of coffee and leave, which you could totally do. But we wanted people to come and congregate and commune. And that's what Ascension ended up being.
Well, it's certainly been successful at doing so.
Yeah, it seems to have done well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd love to hear about kind of your leadership journey with Ascension. You'd had a lot of entrepreneurial experiences. What did you kind of learn about leadership, or what your style might be throughout that experience? And also, what are some of the challenges that you may have come across?
Okay, so, essentially, I have basically three things that drive me. And whether that's leadership or not, it's what drives me. And one is this desire to innovate. I think it's important to continue to innovate your businesses every year, as often as you, not too often, but certainly at a regular pace. Keep moving forward. Keep your competition in the rearview mirrors. Innovation, I think, is really important to help continue to deliver a better experience to the customer. Secondly, I'm all about authentic intent. What that means is if you're going to do something, be authentic about it. Don't do it to make money. That's not a good idea. Do it because you really care about this and you think it's important to yourself and also to the community or whoever you're serving at that time. And finally, the third part, which is probably the most critical part, you need to be passionate.
Of course.
You need to love what you're doing. And I've found that if I don't love something, first of all, I won't do it. But if I don't love something, I'm not going to be successful at it. Because I've never had a job in my entire life. I've been passionate and love going to work every day of my life. It's not to work.
It's incredible.
Well, you have to make it that way too.
Yeah.
But I read. This is kind of all built out of. I read a book called Man's Search for Meaning from
Okay.
Viktor Frankl way back when I think I was 22, and the theory built around that book was logotherapy, which essentially is success cannot be ensued; it must ensue, meaning that it's simply a byproduct of a search for a higher goal. Right? And that has driven me. It means to me, be the best you can be. Money's unimportant. Just do the best job of whatever you're doing, and somehow success, whatever it is, it just may be happiness, will find you.
Right.
So that's kind of how my leadership kind of role or my beliefs go. And I'll tell you, in the early days of Ascension, leading that company was not difficult. Mainly because I was able to get an incredible team. And I think I got that team because what we were doing was so different to what anyone else had done in this country. And they got all excited about it. So I had an incredible barista crew run by a guy called Mike Mettendorf, who taught me how to pull great shots of coffee. And then we attracted another guy called Henry Foote, who took our precision and quality to a level that I could never have imagined.
Wow.
And these people like that, and Ruben in our kitchen, they drove the brand up. So it wasn't so much me. I mean, all I did with Ascension was really go, this is what we're trying to get to. This is what our goals are. Then it's a team that really got us there.
Right.
And the real challenge, I think, as for any business, occurred when you start to expand.
Got it.
And is finding those people, those like-minded people who have the same desire for quality, precision, customer service. That's when it becomes more challenging, and you can't touch everybody every day. And so that's when processes and systems have to take over. And we did okay at that. I think you can always do better. But that for me was the challenge: is maintaining that customer experience and that consistency of product.
Right.
Over 240, 250 people, however it was in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an incredible brand. Huge fan personally.
Thank you.
So after, was it 10 years that you were with Ascension?
Yeah, from the start, from the first inkling of an idea. Yeah.
Okay. So after 10 years, you have pivoted into the biotech and healthcare industry.
Yeah.
So tell us, first of all, what you're leading a company called Etira that's here in Dallas. Tell us about the mission of Etira, and also just how you decided to make that big pivot.
Okay. Well, our mission, we say our mission is no more remission. We're trying to really break through in treating cancer and the complexities of cancer as a whole, not individual cancer types or indications or particular mutations. And so it's quite a bold step. I came in luckily after that work was done, so I'm not going to claim any of that work at all. But how it happened is still interesting to me because I never saw this coming. And I will tell you, anything I've done, I never saw coming. And it's really just keeping your eyes out for opportunity. And it will come, it certainly has come my way. And as it comes, you've got to understand what it is.
Right.
So initially, how did it all come about? I sold Ascension in January 2020, just before COVID, because I had this big idea to start something new that was going to change the world. Unfortunately, COVID kind of put a bit of a damper on that. And I really spent that year trying to understand what was going to happen after COVID, and also playing a lot of tennis.
Sounds great.
It's the only thing you could play.
Yeah.
And then in October, my good friend, Dr. Neshraj, who had developed a whole bunch of compounds at UT Southwestern, approached me because he'd finished his optimization process and he needed someone that he knew how to start a company up and build it. And so he asked me would I be interested in starting Etira and taking the compound forward. And I initially said no. Because this is science. I mean, there's lots of things I can do, but I don't think I can do this. But the more I thought about it and discussed it with him, a couple of things really grabbed me. One was when he explained to me these compounds and what they do and how innovative they are, in that it's a complete paradigm shift in cancer therapy. And I love innovation. I'm always sucked in by innovation. I was like, wow, this is exciting. This is a whole new look. It's a novel molecular target, a novel mechanism of action. This could change cancer therapy forever. I think I want to be part of that. But I was still kind of unsure. But then when it got to who this series of drugs were created for, and it's for patients with therapy-resistant cancers. That's patients that have gone through every line of therapy and there's nothing left for them but palliative care. And that struck a chord for me because my girlfriend had died at 36 from triple-negative breast cancer,
Wow.
therapy-resistant. And, it was 25 years ago that there was no treatment for her. It didn't make any
Right.
sense to me. I mean, this was 1999. I mean, why is there no treatment? And the shocking thing is today, when Ganesh was walking me through this, I realized there's still nothing today. But we have a chance. We have a drug that we think will be pretty successful with these therapy-resistant cancers. So that was the last piece. And I said, I've got to be involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'm in.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, of course, going from coffee to biotech, very, very different industries. What was the learning curve like? Did it feel like you were kind of really getting out of your comfort zone with this new venture? And were there any kind of similarities? Like, were there skills from the coffee piece that you could really apply towards Etira?
Yeah. Learning curve is like looking at the Himalayas from the very valley below.
Right.
And, I've always said, every time I start a business, if I knew how difficult it was going to be, I just wouldn't do it. I go and do something else. But my wife reminds me that's not true, that the more difficult it looks, the more I'm going to do it. But the learning curve was extraordinary. And still, I'm still uncomfortable today. I'm still learning something every day. I still feel dumb every day. And that's part of learning. And learning is something that I've always enjoyed doing. And I think it helps build you as a person. And the day I stop learning is the day I think it's all over for me. But look, there's no doubt there's a massive difference in our product. However, when you look at my job, I'm the CEO. What the CEO does is sees the future for your company, your product, or whatever it is, sets milestones or goals, how to get there, then raises capital, puts a team together, and then shepherds everything towards that goal, right? So that's no different in any business. There's no difference. It's just the widget. And I don't mean to be demeaning about science, but it's just the widget is different. The actual knowledge required as you go through is extreme. However, I've had incredible mentors. We've been able to pull in an incredible team of scientists and consultants as we go through each discipline through the Valley of Death, which I'm sure the viewers understand the Valley of Death. As we went through, we've been able to bring in some of the world experts in each discipline, and that has helped guide us. And I'm not doing this on my own. I have Dr. Raj with me, of course.
Right.
That we're able to make qualified and informed decisions as we go through each path, which is an incredible team we've built around us. And that, to me, that was part of what I did in coffee. That was part of what I did in music. That was part of what I did in advertising, was building these teams and bringing in mentors and teams that can help you move. So my job, it's really, in American terms, is like a quarterback.
Okay.
I'm really just shepherding everybody to where they need to go.
Yeah.
So then the learning curve is not as relevant, but it's to be good at what I do, I've got to read so much and I've got to pay attention so much. So there's not a meeting where I sit back and just blank out. I can't.
Right.
Because every day there's new terms and there's new things to consider.
Yeah. Sounds incredibly exciting.
Yeah. Well, it is exciting, but it's like going to school every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a long college.
It sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But look, it's been exciting. There's no doubt about that. And learning a whole new industry is always exciting. And it's exciting being here doing it because we were the first tenant at Biolabs down there in Pegasus Park. And I remember going in there and people are building around me,
right?
Like still sticking things up, and this workman coming through
Remember
with hard
those days
hats.
very well.
Yeah. I'm sitting there working away, and then I've watched that build, and it's becoming this incredible epicenter for young talent and innovation in Dallas, and watching people go through there. And now it's a real, I don't know if you're going to ask me this later, but now it's like a real kind of camaraderie in there.
Yeah.
And we had a particular problem last week before when I was away, and the whole team at BioLabs pulled together and found us a solution for our problem, which was a critical problem, as a group. And that, to me, was extraordinary. I only found out when I got back from my vacation how it happened. I was like, wow, good for you guys. And had to thank a bunch of people. But it was so great that everybody got together and solved that problem. And that's unique, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that is pretty common in the biotech world is being able to form partnerships externally across academia, major health institutions, government agencies, state agencies. What has that been like for Etira?
Well, initially, we started with an NIH grant, $2 million SBIR grant, which was incredibly formative for us. Without that, we wouldn't be able to get the work done. It really was incredibly important. Since then, I've maintained a connection with the NIH and the NCI, and they've been very supportive. We've also worked with CPRIT, and of course, the college system has been incredibly supportive to us. So the UT system has been incredibly supportive to us. The issue I deal with that, so I'm built like an entrepreneur, so I need to move fast. All right. My goal is to move as quickly as I can to my milestones. Now, you got to remember, too, in life science, we've got a patent clock ticking all the time. And that's always in the back of my head. It's another day gone, another day gone, another day gone. Another piece, there's no shoot from the hip. There's no intuition in this. There's no using the basic knowledge you've brought together through your whole life. Everything is database, validated, verified, and confirmed. So it's this process. It's so much more, not even regulated, but it has to be so much more precision and precise and more accurate and more certain than anything I've ever done before.
Right.
And that makes it much more challenging. You can't use this natural intuition. It's like, I think this is the right way to go. You can't do that.
Right.
The challenge I've had dealing with some of these grants and organizations is their processes, for all the right reasons, take a long time.
Right.
And my development doesn't always fall in line with their timing.
Yep.
So
quickly.
Yeah, so we've not been able to utilize some of these partnerships as much as I would like to, but we're still discussing them into the future. There's still a lot of support for what we're doing, so I'm happy they're there, but I need to move my compound forward, and for my investors and obviously for the company.
And for any of our listeners who aren't familiar with CPRIT, which you mentioned, this is really unique to Texas,
Yes,
right?
is.
Second biggest funding agency for cancer research only in our state.
Yep, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they're very supportive. I don't know how much the funds are now. It's like $55 million or $75 million now or something. And they're incredibly supportive for innovative companies in Texas. And they are filling a hole or pouring a bucket of money into this hole that is there between the NIH grants and private equity.
Right.
And it's really incredible organization.
Absolutely. So we've talked some about your kind of leadership at each of these companies. I'd love to hear from your perspective between Ascension, at Etira, what has been the role that these companies have played just within the broader DFW North Texas community?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's a big question. I think what I aim to do is to build community, or be an important part of community. I think it's really important. And I think it's important because I'm a big believer in, I don't use the term universe, but the actual universe around us, we're just a bit player in it. And that our role as people is to continually give back to that. And so with what that meant with Ascension, we certainly knew our role as the center of the communities we're in, and we worked that as hard as we possibly could to be good, not good stewards, but certainly good community members and reflect what we thought the communities wanted. But that kind of went further because, I was farming, I think, as you know, in Rwanda and India, and also consulting in Nepal. And so whenever we looked at those communities, we looked around us, how can we make our communities better? Does that mean better healthcare? Does it mean higher wages, which in my case, it meant higher wages to the local people, and really being a meaningful part of those communities, because we could make major differences in those communities. With Etira, we're now looking, for us, I think it's a role we play of leadership. of opportunities, of this what can be. I try and put myself out there as much as I can with some of the younger entrepreneurs. Say, I'm here to help. I've been through a lot. I can help you maybe through pieces of it. And certainly at Biolabs, we see a lot of that, of cross communication. And Russell knows something about this, and Gary knows something about that. And so people come and use this kind of joint mentality or collective intelligence. So I think that's the role we play as Etira, is to ensure that what we know is disseminated amongst the local population, the local community, as also with the kids too. I mean, we try and do as much as we can with local schools, with kids that are interested in science. I volunteer at a bunch of entrepreneurial boards in South Dallas, and you see some of these kids are in. I'm going to tell you a quick little story. I was at a school. This is really indicative because I've seen this down in some of the work I do here too. But I was at a school in South Sudan, of all places, where I've been working since 2011, trying to rebuild the coffee business, which was a key business for that particular area. And I was just kind of really running this little class on coffee and what it means as far as the world, and how the kids of ex-coffee farmers, because it's been wars, for 65 years there. So a lot of their parents, the coffee farms, were no longer active. The kids wanted to be in the family business. So I was really giving this whole 2-hour lecture on how the coffee industry works and where they can fit the role in. And it's all guys except for one girl.
Wow.
And, it was a series of typical questions at the end of that. Then this girl has been trying to ask a question right through this thing. And, of course, the boys drown her out. And I finally said, stop. What's your question? And she says, how can I make my coffee worth more money? Right?
Good question.
Yeah. And I was stopped for a second. I went, okay. Well, you can get high quality. You can spend more time with your plants and with your soil composition and build that. And, I can help you with that, or I can give you some contacts that can help you improve the quality of your coffee. And that'll improve the return you get on the crop. And I thought that was a good answer, and then moved to the next person. And then halfway through the next person's question, I realized what she was asking me. She was asking me, how can I value add? So I came straight back to her and said, are you asking me how you can add value to your coffee? She said, yes. And I said, okay, well, now you can roast. Because once you go from growing to roasting, there's this huge increase in valuation.
Right.
And it's almost exponential. So yes, it is actually. So you should learn how to roast and then sell roaster coffee. She says, okay. And then she asked me another follow-up question. So these are people that have nothing. They live without electricity in, the historic homes, right? And yet they're entrepreneurs. They're thinking. And that really taught me a lot, that I don't care where someone comes from. I don't care how they're born, where they're born. There's this entrepreneurial spirit in a lot of people. And I think we need to really be, good, what do you call it, farmers? Farmers is the wrong term, but, good husbands of that, and develop as these young people as much as we possibly can.
How did you identify talent when first hiring for Ascension and for Etira?
Just on history. Certainly for Etira, it was, Ascension, it was their experience. Right. And then I'd also frequented the coffee shops that existed, which was like 2 in Dallas. And I knew these people. I tasted their coffee. I'd seen them work. There was one particular guy I wanted, this Mike Mettendorf. I wanted him because he was a leader in Dallas of baristas. And I knew that Mike was interested in coming to work with us, then he would bring some of the best baristas with him. Right. And essentially, that's what I've done at Etira, is finding the right people. And we started off with Sharon Gargoski, who's our Australian regulatory person. And that started, honestly, just as a phone call and discussion of how she could help us do some work in Australia, which was just an idea back then. But we got her through another contact that we knew that suggested we talk to Sharon. We talked to Sharon, and then from Sharon came someone else. Okay. From someone else came someone else. So it was essentially a lot of connectivity and talking to people. And we talked to a lot of people, and then deciding on who we thought was the best fit based on their experience and based on their feedback when we brief them on the particular task at hand. Now, the great thing is that all of those people are still in the Etira orbit.
Okay.
And just as much as yesterday, I had to get some advice from one of our guys that we started working with in 2022. And it's in his field. And so I went back and got to respond to something for him. And he goes, I'm glad things are going great. And so they've stayed with us all this time.
Right.
And that, if people have asked me, why does that happen? Why do they just walk away and be done with it? I think it's because we've got such a innovative product, again, that people want to be involved with. But secondly, I think we take their advice and we involve them in what we're doing. So it's not like we grab their advice, walk away, and pretend it's ours. We will bring those people into our meetings, into the development of our particular compound or project, and give them some ownership. And I think ownership is really, really important in any business. And I've always done that, is try to have my key people, even non-key people, feel some ownership in what they're doing at the company.
It goes a long way.
Yeah, it's hard to do. Once your company gets bigger, it gets much more difficult to do. But certainly, I think without full commitment, you're not going to get the best of people. And without respecting them and without really listening hard, you're not going to get the best. You're going to get a rote answer, which, certainly in the early days, we got a few rote answers, that's for sure. And we went, the wrong people. They're not interested in being involved in. So that's the team is essential. One thing I'll say about science is, as I got involved, is these verticals, be it drug synthesis or formulation or toxicology. There's these verticals are narrow and they're very high.
Right.
And there's not a lot of communication between each of the different disciplines. So it's a matter of getting your expert here and then bring the next person in the chain into those meetings to be listening what's going on so they can take their piece from that and move on. So we were very effective at doing that, I think. So we didn't wait till we got, for example, we got our drug synthesis completed before we started talking to formulation people. We bring them into those meetings so they could listen in and understand what we're dealing with, because that gave them hints of what they were going to deal with when they started their formulation process, for example.
Absolutely. Well, there's one question that we always ask our guests, which, and you've been such a fantastic mentor to so many entrepreneurs in our community and around the world. Who has been kind of the greatest mentor that you have had throughout your career?
Okay. Well, there's been so many. Because I've been in 4 different industries, I've kind of moved through them. And, it's like each person's taught me one thing or 2 things, and they've stuck with me. So I can kind of put a list together of maybe 20 people that have added this person gave me that, person gave me that. And I think we're all made up of this whole pieces of all these people we've interacted with. But if there is one person, it's my first ever boss. Okay. Back at Saatchi's in Melbourne, Australia. And he really taught me the importance of teams. Number one, the importance of speaking up in a meeting. And when you're, whatever I was, a 20-year-old kid, and you're sitting at a table with all the senior executives of an ad agency, speaking up is pretty intimidating. And he taught me to speak up, speak my mind. And that's always played pretty true for me. And he also taught me the power of information. And not that I've ever been to the level that he was, but I always keep it in my mind, collect information, keep information, file away, go access it when you can, because information is king.
What would you say you're most proud of in your career? Biggest accomplishment?
I don't think I'm there yet. Unfortunately, I'm an achiever, so that means you're never happy.
Yeah.
There's been a series of things, but I wouldn't say one. I will say something, and it's typical for me because it's the latest thing. And taking this company, Etira, taking that compound from the lab to the clinic in 3.5 years, I take that as a huge achievement. And we did incredibly efficiently from a capital perspective. So I know when we got approval for our clinical trials, I felt something I've not felt for a long time, this sense of accomplishment. So I have to say that is probably the latest
Huge
thing.
Deal.
Yeah, it's still not hit me because I'm looking at the next milestone now. But I think that I would say that was probably the biggest achievement to date, and hopefully it turns out to be successful for everybody involved.
Yeah. Well, on that note, what's next for Etira? What are you most excited about going forward?
Making sure these clinical trials work. It's out of my hands, of course, but I think the next step for us, if we'll know in a few months if we are successful in seeing some type of response in these clinical trials. This drug has got the opportunity to be one of the biggest drugs in cancer history. Well, certainly one of them. And that to me is trying to ensure that what we do maximizes the potential use of this drug, utility of the drug, and that we can actually help as many patients as we possibly can.
Right.
And that's all strategic work. And we've brought on, as we do, we've brought on a team of people now that can actually help guide us through the next stage of Etira to ensure that we maximize the benefits of this particular drug and get it to our patients as fast as we can.
Absolutely. Well, I have one more question for you before we get to some fun rapid fire.
Okay.
Which is, what is some kind of final advice that you would give to any aspiring entrepreneurs out there, or anyone who's looking to kind of just create value for their surrounding communities?
I think, and that's a tough one. I don't see myself as a leader, so I think what I tell entrepreneurs is there's two important things, and these are my things, not necessarily everybody's, but I think innovation is key. I think innovating or finding a way to disrupt the market, I know it's a modern term, disrupt the market, but change the paradigm on how people are doing things, how people are experiencing things. How are you doing your research? Look for different ways. I think that's key to success, is finding a different way to do. Don't follow the same old path, because everybody's doing that.
Right.
Find a different path. And that to me is the number one thing. The second thing, as far as entrepreneurs are concerned, I think there's entrepreneurs fail to watch their financials. And I've seen that a lot, and it's very hard to be two minds. It's very hard to be this creative person that's innovating and spending a lot of time on that.
Right.
You've got to watch the back door.
Yeah.
Now, if that's not you watching it, then have someone watching it, because that is critical. Running out of money in this business is in front of us every day, and so you've got to watch. You've got to watch that, because I learned that the hard way. So I'm pretty skilled at telling you not to watch that back door.
Yeah.
But as far as the community is concerned, I think you need to look around and see where your company or your product can have impact. And again, I'm of this belief that, as we touched on earlier, that all the knowledge that's come to me in my life is not mine. It does not belong to me. It didn't belong to me before, and it doesn't belong to me now. My job is to share that.
Right.
And it's kind of more that open hand type idea rather than clenching like that. The more you share the information you have and the skills you've developed and the experiences you got, the more you're going to seed the entire community to move forward. And I do look back a little bit, and I run into people that have my managers and people that have been involved with me during my life, and a lot of them are entrepreneurs. A lot of them run their own companies way back since my 20s. And it's so gratifying to see these people that, maybe learned something when they're with you, but maybe just gave them the kick they needed.
Right.
And they're off running their own lives and happy and being successful. And I think that's that giving back thing. You don't want that. You don't do it for that reason. But when you see the benefits of being open and sharing whatever you have, it's nothing more gratifying than that.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate all of that advice. And just to close us out, we have a quick round of rapid fire questions for you. Okay, so the first one is, what is your go-to coffee order?
Surprisingly, a pour over.
Okay.
Yeah.
What makes a great pour over?
Incredible coffee. Incredible roasting, and incredible brewing.
Okay.
Very hard to get, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So outside of Ascension, what is the best coffee house in Dallas?
And now you could put me in a difficult position on that one.
Fair.
But I like
You can abstain if you need to.
I'm going to say Native Coffee.
Oh, that's good. Okay, what TV show are you currently watching?
Hacks.
Oh, that's so good.
I missed
So
the last
good.
2 seasons. I just started watching that again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so well done.
It's very funny. Yeah.
And what's your favorite musician that you're listening to at the moment?
It's going to date me a little, I think. I've kind of got a Pink Floyd thing going on right now.
Oh, great. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Takes me back.
Yeah.
It's incredible music. But the interesting thing I found, but obviously we're looking, we're now downloading music and it's all squashed,
Right.
right? And has to be. So I just bought my daughter, who's came back from college in between her masters, and just bought her a turntable.
Oh, nice.
And so this is like the dad stuff, maybe it's a middle age or late age thing, but I bought her that. Now this weekend she doesn't know, but I'm going to buy speakers. Because she's got a cute little speaker. Because
Oh,
I
that's
want
so
to
exciting.
hear that Dark Side of the
Yeah.
Moon the way it's meant to be heard. Yeah,
For sure. That's awesome.
just my latest fun thing.
Yeah. What book are you currently reading?
Entrepreneurial book. Yeah,
Which one is it?
it's what's it called? Life Science Entrepreneurial Life Science Entrepreneurial. It's from the 2010.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Entrepreneurs in Life Science. Yeah.
Okay. What do you do to relax or recharge? Nothing.
Nothing. No,
Okay.
I don't really stop.
Yeah.
Play tennis. Actually, that's
that's
not
good.
true. I play tennis a lot.
Yeah.
I love watching Australian football.
Nice.
Which seasons we're at the championship, 2 weeks away from the championship game. So that gets me
exciting.
up at 4 a.m. to watch the games.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
awesome.
So that's my
That's awesome.
relaxation.
And then if you could have dinner with anyone.
It's. I hate to say it, but I think it's probably Rupert Murdoch.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, because I watched him, way back when he was just an Adelaide newspaper guy. Took over from his dad. And I've watched him, not that I agree with everything he does, but I've watched him build that into a international business. And I'd like to learn, how he did that and what drove him. But I think there's a lot to be learned from him, A lot of bad stuff too, I think,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
with I think anybody that's success, I mean, you got to give something up, and
Right.
I'm not prepared to do that, of course. But there's a lot to be learned from someone that's really taken it from almost nowhere, a business from almost nowhere to world leading.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Okay, my last question is, did you watch the Olympics this year?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so I feel like we've all kind of seen some of the Australian highlights, including
Yeah.
Ray Gunn with breakdancing.
Yeah.
What do you think was the best Australian highlight this year?
Swimming. The swimming, that was the
Yeah.
best. That's the best swimming meet we've ever had, and they missed their goal. Their goal was to beat the U.S. in gold medals, and
Yeah.
we missed it by one. But to see that the development of that swimming program, because we were gods in the 40s and 50s, because we were swimming away from sharks all the time.
Yeah.
I guess So to see that kind of decline after '72, and then see the country build it back. And they were so proud of it. I'm in the Australian media a fair bit, and they were so proud of that swimming team, and I think they did an incredible job. I really do. And we even had some track success this year, which is really unusual for us.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah. So I think they did great next to LA.
True. Well, Russell, thank you so much for being with us. It was such a pleasure to get to learn more about your entrepreneurial journey, your advice for entrepreneurs. We just so appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And for our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about Etira, you can visit etira.life. So that's ETIRA.life, LIFE. We'll have links to Etira and Ascension in the show description. And then just don't forget to subscribe to the podcast for more inspiring leadership stories. And we'll see you next time on Learning from Leaders.
Thanks for listening to Learning from Leaders. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to subscribe now for monthly episode drops so that you can continue to learn from experienced business and community leaders to help you drive meaningful change in your community.